Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled you're here today because we are going to completely deconstruct something you interact with literally every single day. Look, if you think you already understand marketing, I want you to prepare to have your perspective entirely flipped upside down. Today's Explainer is based on this phenomenal self-MBA module, and it basically reveals that practically everything we usually associate with marketing, it's just the tip of the iceberg. So get ready to completely rethink how the world's absolute best products are actually built.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we're going to shatter the 10% marketing myth. Then we'll unpack Seth Godin's marketing framework. After that, we'll uncover the secret behind top brands. And finally, we'll talk about applying your new knowledge.
All right, starting with Section 1, the 10% marketing myth. So if you go out and ask literally anyone on the street or honestly even executives in a boardroom what marketing actually is, they're almost always going to say it's advertising, selling, or branding. But the source material makes this striking point. That is merely 10% of the picture. Think of it like a donut. That 10% is just the visible frosting on top. The true foundation of any wildly successful brand is the massive 90% underneath. It's this completely invisible strategy that most consumers never even see, let alone understand. And here's the kicker. If you don't grasp this 90%, building a successful brand is going to be incredibly tough.
Moving right along to Section 2, Seth Godin's marketing framework. Let's look at that invisible 90%.
The legendary Seth Godin defines it so beautifully. He says, marketing is a generous act of helping others to become who they seek to become. I absolutely love this phrasing. And it actually perfectly parallels the whole goal of this very explainer. My aim right now is to generously help you become a better founder, a sharper thinker, or just a vastly more skilled marketer by completely changing how you view this concept. At its core, true marketing is an act of service.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can take that lofty philosophical idea and turn it into a concrete, actionable definition. To truly grasp that invisible 90%, you really have to internalize this sentence. Marketing is the act of making change happen for a specific person in a specific situation in a way that they choose. Let's actually break this down into its critical, game-changing components.
Okay, so the very first pillar is making change. The source material points out this genuinely fascinating reality. People have never actually bought a product. They really don't want products. What they actually buy is a new version of themselves. Think about it. If your product doesn't change their behavior, alter their core belief, elevate their social status, or shift their self-perception, well, then you haven't actually done any real marketing. If a customer's life doesn't change after interacting with your brand, the marketing has fundamentally failed.
The next pillar is the specific person. And man, this is where so many campaigns just absolutely crash and burn. We have this natural assumption that, hey, if we reach more people, we'll automatically make more money, right? But marketing for everyone reaches absolutely no one. You have to be hyper-specific. Seth Godin calls this finding your smallest viable audience. You literally have to figure out the exact specific person whose problem you are solving before you can ever hope to scale up to millions.
Let me ask you to notice how specific the brand Mama Earth got when they were first starting out. They didn't target all moms or all women, no way. They built their entire foundation strictly targeting a highly specific audience. Moms living in urban cities who had young babies and who are actively terrified about toxic chemicals in baby care products. By solving the problem for that highly specific, smallest viable audience first, that's how they laid the invisible foundation to become the massive 1,000 crore company that sells to everyone today. Then we have the specific situation. I want you to think about the food delivery app Swiggy for a second. If you open their app late at night, you don't just see a standard menu search, you see a category explicitly called Midnight Cravings. This brilliantly illustrates our point because, let's be honest, midnight cravings isn't a type of cuisine. It's pure emotional validation of a customer's specific situation. It tells the user, hey, we know you're starving at 1 a.m., we are definitely not judging you, and we're just here to help you choose. That empathy right there, that is marketing. And finally, all of this has to be done in a way the customer chooses without ever feeling manipulated or forced.
So it's only once you have figured out exactly who you serve, what specific change you bring to their lives, and what you stand for that you can finally move to that 10% visible execution branch. Advertising? That's just the channel to promote the product. Branding? That's just managing how the customer perceives you. And sales is just proving that your product solves their problem.
You simply cannot design a flashy ad or build a brand if you haven't done that invisible 90% foundation work first. It just won't work.
All right, on to section 3, the secret behind top brands. Let's see this 90% applied in the real world. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark difference between illusion and reality. I mean, on the surface, Tanishq sells jewelry, Nike sells shoes, and Cred is a credit card app. That's the 10% visible product. But the real product being sold, their 90% invisible strategy, is entirely different. Tanishq is selling remarkable occasions. Nike is selling a serious athlete identity. And Cred, they're selling exclusive privilege.
Let's actually zoom in on Tanishq for a second. If you watch their ad campaigns, they rarely just show close-ups of gold designs. Why is that? Because marketing is about what the purchase means, not what the product literally is. They're selling the feeling of making an anniversary or an engagement a truly remarkable, unforgettable life event. When a customer walks in and buys Tanishq, they aren't buying pieces of metal. They are buying the ability to make their partner feel incredibly, incredibly special.
Or look at Nike's iconic "Just Do It." That tagline doesn't tell you the shoe has great grip or helps you run 5 seconds faster. It's actually a challenge. The source analysis points out that this messaging is aimed squarely at the person who deeply wants the identity of a serious athlete, but, maybe hasn't quite gotten off the couch to go to the gym yet. Nike is selling a belief system. If your brand isn't developing a core belief in your customer, you can never build a company like Nike.
And then there's Cred. This is such a fascinating case study in status and self-perception. When Kunal Shah launched the app, he absolutely did not make it available to everyone. He required a credit score of 750 or higher, and he made it strictly invite-only. Because access was restricted, the people who did get in felt incredibly privileged. They literally flexed it at parties. The massive takeaway here? Sometimes the absolute most powerful marketing isn't about who you let in, it's about who you intentionally keep out.
Which brings us to our final section, Section 4, Applying Your New Knowledge. Let's build your foundation.
So the crucial point is this. Before you ever think about designing a logo, writing a catchy slogan, or running a social media ad, you must answer these 3 non-negotiable questions for your own startup idea. Number 1, who specifically will you serve? And remember, the answer cannot be everyone. Number 2, what exact change will you bring to their lives? And number 3, what do you stand for? If you have rock-solid answers to these 3 questions, you have the power to build an incredible brand.
Now, to make sure this really sticks, the module gives us a fantastic microaction assignment. If you don't have a personal startup idea brewing just yet, that's totally fine. I want you to answer those 3 core foundational questions for a dummy hydration brand called Drip. Think about the highly specific person, the exact specific situation they are in, and the ultimate change that Drip is going to bring to them.
I want to leave you with this final, truly provocative thought that summarizes everything we've covered today. Marketing is not what you say, it is the change you make for a specific person who chooses you. I challenge you to take your framework for Drip, or your very own startup idea, and post it on LinkedIn. Tag MBA Thinking and start a conversation that will actually get you noticed by the right people. So what kind of change are you going to make? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.